I put this up on Twitter and a lot of you guys wanted the build. I have added to it. There's a lot more to it. Very, very powerful. It's also very fun. The sky's really the limit because you can do this at base. No real build crafting is involved. All you need is an exotic, some aspects, and fragments. With that said, you can and should build even more into it and make it a whole lot better. It starts with the young Ahamkara Spine. Exotic perk, Wish Dragon Teeth, increased trip mine grenade duration and blast radius. Also remember, the trip mine doesn't hurt you. Ability damage grants trip mine energy. Ability damage. And the new Solar 3.0 adds to this. It adds a lot. There's a lot of looping. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can run this from the start. One's going to be later unlocked. I don't quite have it yet. It's within the artifact. It involves the dodge, so you would use gamblers or marksmen. This is for the cooldown, because in the top right of the artifact on the last page, we have classy restoration. I believe that this will get nerfed. Activating your solar class ability, and in the hunter's case, dodge, very fast ability, it grants restoration. And with restoration in Solar 3.0, you regenerate health and shields over time. Cannot be interrupted by taking damage. So in harder content, you can straight up out heal the big damage that you're getting, but you're gonna need the dodge and a fast cooldown. But for now, we're gonna go with the acrobat's dodge. Dodge to perform an acrobatic leap. Upon landing, make yourself and nearby allies radiant. Radiant is more damage, and in PvE, it means that you get a 25% damage buff for the duration of being radiant. That's no joke. And with this dodge, you just trigger it. Apply radiant to yourself, nearby allies, you guys get the damage buff, but there are some other ways to get it. For the aspects, we have knock 'em down. Enhanced solar super, so I'm using Blade Barrage. It's crazy good, high DPS. Blade Barrage launches more projectiles. Secondary, while radiant final blows with your equipped throwing knife fully refunds the melee energy. I'm gonna come back to this. Then we have Gunpowder Gamble. Defeat targets with abilities, solar debuffs, or solar weapons to charge up the explosive. The Gunslinger build here uses Radiant Scorch and Ignite. That's the play loop. Grenade, Trip Mine. The Trip Mine applies Scorch. Knife Trick, the Fan of Knives. It applies Scorch. For the aspects, this is the one that you aren't really supposed to have unlocked, but I had on the subclass, so it unlocked it. It's going to be unlocked soon if you don't have it. Ember of Ashes. You apply more Scorch stacks on targets. It's a big deal. And as you see on the left, Scorch damage increases the Scorch stacks. Add enough Scorch stacks, and the target will ignite. The ignition is a large solar explosion, which deals damage in an area around the target. Ember of Solace. Radiant and restoration effects applied have an increased duration. Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants make you and nearby allies radiant. So this alone, it allows you to spam knives and spam radiant. Each solar final blow from the knife, the trip, or a solar weapon is going to get progress to the big grenade. I'm going to talk about that in a second. So if you have something like the Ogma, which I've talked about a lot, Demolitionist Wellspring, it helps out everything. I want to get into weapons at the end, but you don't necessarily need a solar weapon. It's a big help, but you don't need it. But with the Gunpowder Gamble, this is where it really gets fun. I want to show you the loop, the order of operations. When you throw the Gambler's Grenade, the trip is going to be ready right behind it. So what happens, because you have on Ahamkara, the little thing about it is ability damage grants trip mine energy. After you throw that big grenade, throw the trip mine right after. The Gambler's Brick is going to explode, then the trip mine's going to explode, causing an ignition. When that happens, Ahamkara gives you the energy to throw another one. Since you've applied so many stacks at this point, it's going to give you the trip mine back to throw another one after the ignition. And you just keep going. Throw it, get energy, then you throw your knife. If there's enough torch stacks, it's immediately going to give you the trip mine back. If not, because it's a solar ability, it gives you a huge chunk of trip mine anyway. Just loop and repeat. Crazy good. But you can loop it without that big grenade. To do that on your target, throw the knife first and burn them. Then throw the trip. Because there's enough stacks of Scorch, it will ignite, giving you the rest of the trip mine, so you throw it again. And the cool thing here, at the end of your loop, you have the Radiant Dodge. When you do that on an enemy, it applies a small damage to them. Well, that also counts as ability energy for the Ahamkara Trip Mine. It's going to give you it back, so you throw another. At some point, you're going to have your knife back and you loop it again. This is just at base. Just the exotic, the knife, trip, aspects, and fragments. You can do a lot. And in that split second that you're waiting for the ignition to go off to get the trip mine back, throw a Wither Horde. Do some more abilities once it comes back. Once you're waiting for the other ignition, throw out a rocket. Do more abilities. Come back to Wither Horde. It's going to be auto-loaded. Then you're going to come back to the rocket. It's auto-loaded. Gunslinger came to play in 3.0. Technically, this is the Nadeslinger. The trip mine doesn't hurt, all you're doing is throwing grenades and knives. And again, if you have the big gambler's nade, throw that first, then the trip right after, do the ignition, gets the trip back, throw it again. If you don't have that grenade, throw the knife first, then the trip, it'll have an ignition, throw the trip again. No matter where you are, you have the acrobatic dodge to fall back on. Do it next to an enemy, it'll get the trip back if it's almost there. So now, how do we make it better? It's so good, I'm still messing with it. And once I show you what I've been doing, I'm really interested to see what you can come up with. When it comes to weapons, I've been using Wither Horde and a rocket, both have auto-loading. That way, I get off shots between my abilities. It works great. It's awesome. But when it comes to your energy weapon, solar weapon final blows are a big deal for that big grenade because it's working in tandem. You're throwing out the easy knives, getting the knife back, getting charges. You're getting these solar weapon final blows, that's getting charges. So eventually, you'll get the grenade quickly. But for a solar weapon, something with demo is great, but it also brings up swashbuckler or adrenaline junkie weapons like the Solar BXR. The new Drang has swashbuckler. As you're mowing through with those knives, not only are you proccing swashbuckler times 5 if you have a solar swashbuckler weapon, but you're also getting the 25% radiant buff on top of that. It's perfect. Then adrenaline junkie is going to work good too because of the trip mine. You can also use Monte Carlo, just go off. But when it comes to your mods, here's what I'm currently using, but there's a lot of room for changing. Melee and grenade wall maker. So getting a final blow with the melee or the grenade drops a solar well, then elemental charge. Since it's a solar well, when I grab it, the well itself gives ability energy, so that's a big mention here. As you're close to your cooldowns, pick up the wells to get back the trip mine or knife trick. But when you pick up that well with elemental charge, it gives you 2 stacks of charge with light. For those 2 stacks, I have heavy-handed. I regain half the melee energy when I throw my knife. And the secondary perk is my fusion shotgun sidearm SMG. It adds ammo from reserves as I get going with it. The other one's firepower, regain a portion of the grenade when I throw the grenade. So even though knock 'em down radiant lets me just spam my melee, there are going to be times where it A, doesn't kill, or B, I'm on a bigger target. So when I throw my knife on that bigger target, I at least am getting half of it back so I can start my loop again with it, or use it when I need trip energy. And in that loop, 1 stack is consumed because of heavy-handed, I get half the melee back, but right after that I throw the grenade with firepower to consume the other one. The possibilities really are endless. You can go Warmind cells even, but charge with light, maybe heal thyself. While you're charged, the grenade final blows, it consumes a stack, starts healing. You can go Argent Ordnance for, let's say, a rocket launcher. You can go Protective Light, and maybe later on pair that with Restoration from the artifact, and just be a tank. You can do surprise attack with that swashbuckler Drang. There's so many ways. At base, it's great, but adding to it makes it even more of a monster. When it comes to your stat splits, I've tried different things. I mean, currently right now, I have 80 strength, 50 discipline, but I've tried 100 discipline, 100 strength. Those do need to be pretty high, but even if they're not too high, that's okay because you have so much help because of Solar 3.0. As you can see, my mobility is low, but if you were to do it the other way, once you get that artifact slot and you put on Gambler or Marksman Dodge, you want to get that as high as possible. I highly encourage you to go try this out. Even without Ember of Ashes, that's the one where you apply more Scorch stacks on targets, it's still going to do well. It's just that Ember of Ashes, making Ignite after you throw one after the other, giving the trip mine right back is a big deal. When it comes to the Crucible, I haven't tried it in there. In theory, it could work, but this is definitely more PvE. There's also pairing some solar weapons that I haven't tried out yet. There's also other fragments that you could try. Defeating targets with solar ignitions grants grenade energy, so that's going to help out the trip mine. That's Ember of Blistering. Ember of Eruption, the ignitions have increased area of effect. Wonder, rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignitions, generates orbs of power. There's a lot that you can do with this, but I do encourage you to go try it. It's extremely strong. And if you're new here, remember to hit the subscribe button, and if you are subscribed, thank you so much for your support. Let's talk about Solar 3.0 down below in the Ultimate Nadeslinger. Thank you for watching, and until the next one, I am CoolGuy.